Welcome back, everybody, and today we're going to be making a perch swim bait. Should be a lot of fun, so let's get started. So this lure is actually going out to a buddy of mine, so we're going to have to make sure that this thing works pretty well. We're going to try to have a ring joint in the back here. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. I've actually never made one before. We might have to resort to just adding 2 joints in the middle, but if we can and try to figure it out, maybe we'll be able to add that ring joint. But anyway, we're also going to have 2 other joints in this thing. We're also going to paint the gills instead of carving them, and then we're also going to have this top fin here made out of some polycarbonate. Should be a pretty cool looking lure, so let's get started. If you guys have any lure designs or ideas that I should try to replicate for future videos, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear them. So here's the basic shape so far, and today we're just going to be making this perch out of an old piece of barnwood I found. So here's the rough shape so far. Just after a bit of drumming and some hand sanding, I decided to carve in that top fin, just so that way it'd be less of a hassle of doing it with some Lexan, and it'll also be better because then I already have that installed and don't have to worry about having to cut the Lexan or anything for when we have to cut the joints. So now we got to figure out where everything's placed and also what I'm going to do with the tail. Alright, so we went with the normal method that we used by just cutting a slot in the tail there and installing that tail fin like you guys saw me cut out. So looking pretty good so far, and now on to the next step. So I skipped ahead a couple steps here. I had the tail in and just glued that in like I normally do. I had the eye sockets with my Dremel piece, and then also cut all the slots for where the joints are going to go. So now the next step is to draw out all those holes where the joint connections are going to go, and also sand this thing quite up just to make sure that it's as smooth as possible before we seal it with some polyurethane. So I temporarily installed all the hardware and added the weights to where I think it'll work. So we're just going to test it out and make changes as it goes. So that stays up pretty well, but I definitely need to add some more to get this thing to sink. If you want to see more in depth how I do this weight testing process, check out my walk the dog style topwater lure video that I made not too long ago. Perfect. Now it's time to install the lead and get this thing ready to be painted. We started off the painting process by adding a base coat of white. Then we add some green to the top and midsection of this lure, and also add some silver scales. Then I worked on the stencil for the perch pattern. This was by far the hardest part of making this lure. It was really hard to align where all those stripes would go on both sides, and also making sure that it looked natural and not adding too many of them. One thing that helps me making gills is by using the same stencil I started with at the beginning. So that way I get exactly what I was aiming for. You can also get a symmetric side on either side. Then I had to add a lot of orange to this lure just because the paint scheme I was trying to replicate had a lot of orange throughout it. The picture that my buddy sent me had a lot of orange throughout the tail, also the bottom section. I had a little bit more, but I think it added a lot to the lure. Alright, here's the finished up perch swim bait. I think this thing turned out pretty awesome, and all the colors and different things that went into this lure. I think my buddy will have a really good time with it, should have really good action, and hopefully catch some big fish with it. So this is definitely a ton of fun to make. Thank you guys so much for watching. And unfortunately, we won't have a video for next Saturday. I have to work on a couple more lure orders that I haven't been able to do lately. So I have to work on that, and then we'll be able to get back to the YouTube videos. And so that's that. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for staying with me till the end. I hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one.